Hello, my name is Matt. I'm a teacher, and today I'm going to tell you a story.
Hi there, I'm Gianna from Family Fun Twin Cities, and this is the Let's Go Do Fun Stuff show. I don't know if it's because we both have funny sounding last names, or because I appreciate a really good story, but when I learned that Matt Eicheldinger lived in Minnesota, I literally shouted out loud, "I knew it!" If you don't know who Matt Eicheldinger is, he is a middle school teacher who just launched his first middle grade novel called Matt Sprouts and the Curse of the 10 Broken Toes. Omri and I enjoyed getting to know Matt so much that this turned into a two-part series. We are pretty confident that you will enjoy Matt as much as we did.
There's not many Eicheldingers in the United States. And so most of the time, if I meet someone with the last name Eicheldinger, we are connected through a bloodline somehow, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, funny enough, helped separate me from other authors just because when you Google my name, I am the only one that you find. It's me and my brother, who's an independent videographer in Tennessee. We come up the most often. So I kind of like that Eicheldinger has become like the only. So I grew up in Colorado, and then I came here.
To Minnesota?
To Minnesota. My goal was, I had a lot of people in my small high school who were staying in state, and I felt like I wanted to just not start over, but see what it was like to be truly on my own.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to where I was pretty fast, so I could get a scholarship to run somewhere. And so I was basically looking like, who's going to pay me the most to get the farthest away? Not that I was running away from anything. Right. I loved where I grew up. And so St. Paul, Minnesota at Concordia University is where I went to college.
Okay.
Yep. And then I got married, and here I am. Yeah.
And is she from Minnesota?
She's from Wisconsin. And so
where in Wisconsin? Take off as I think they will. Is your goal to go back to the classroom, or to like do this for a while? Do you have a goal, or just kind of going with it?
I think my goals have changed over time. So like when I wrote it when I was 21, my goal was like to give it to kids for fun. And then my goal changed to, oh, it'd be cool to have it on a shelf. And now that I've gotten like a taste of what it's like to just be a storyteller, I really enjoy it. And I've always been a storyteller, but to do it 100% of the time has been really fulfilling. Yeah. And, you know, being a teacher lately has not been easy. I would say the last 5 years are the hardest of my career for a variety of reasons. Yeah. And I've enjoyed just the break and having brain space to do what I think I was meant to do. And so, you know, it's tough because, yeah, I mean, if this book takes off and it replaces my teaching salary, absolutely. It'd be amazing to be an author and travel around. Yeah. But at the same time, like, the reason I liked teaching was because I got so much inspiration from my kids, and I enjoyed the back and forth that we had in class. So I think I will be a teacher in some capacity. I always really wanted to get into mentoring new teachers, so I could see myself being like an author and maybe an adjunct professor for like entry-level teachers might be interesting. But yeah, as of this point, I have no idea. But I do know the part that was hardest for my family and I is I signed my book deal. The next day was the last day to put in for leave. The reality that most people don't understand is there's a ton of pressure right now to do well. And so, but I have to continue to remind myself, like, what was the original goal? The original goal was to get a book on a shelf. And I've done that, and everything that happens after should just be icing on the cake, right? Except unless you change your goal. Unless I change my goal. And you know, you get these little glimmers of it could be successful. Like, it was the #1 pre-ordered book at Barnes & Noble for Simon & Schuster, like above Britney Spears and Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Dog Man. And so you're like, oh, is this actually happening? But the book's not into the world yet. And once it's into the world, how will it be received? What kind of feedback will you get? And that's what I'm most nervous about, is that I'm at my goal, and for some reason the feedback would kill it. And I don't think that'll happen because I had the independent book and I got good feedback from kids and teachers, but you just don't know, since it's an art form, how will it be received and how does that translate into profit? But the fact that, you know, Andrews McNeil, my publisher, has signed me on to write 3 or 2 more and other books is they see a positive trend. And so I'm kind of latching on faith there. Yeah. But to the original question of like, what am I doing after this, is I don't know what I'm doing 3 weeks from now. I don't know what I'm doing a month from now, which is hard because my wife and I are big time planners. And so we we just kind of look at each other every day like, I don't know.
Yeah. And now, here's what we've been waiting for. Some stories from Matt.
So, would you mind telling the Zoom story?
Sure. The story is called Rolling Dice.
That's why I couldn't find it, yes.
Yeah, because in hindsight, I would have named it Zooming, but you don't know if a video is going to do well or not.
Yeah.
That video ended up having millions of views, and that story was I had a kid in class, and we were going to have like a relay competition, and he was so excited. He's like, I'm really good at obstacle courses and relays. I'm like, so good. I'm like, sure you are. You know, kids always brag. And turns out he was like really good. And so he took off. He was in the lead. But one of the final steps was you had to roll, I think, a 6 in order to go to the next spot. And for whatever reason, that dice just wasn't rolling a 6 for him. And he rolled it, and was screaming and frustrated, and everyone kind of passed him. And he got done, and you could tell he was frustrated, but he was also smiling. And he was like, you know what? It's okay, because I still zoomed. And we were like, what does zoom mean? And he's like, well, it's when you do really good and you try your best, even if it doesn't work out, you like show up your best self. And so that became like a class motto for us. We had it on the wall. I still zoomed. Kids would come back from hockey practice and be like, oh, it didn't go well, but I still zoomed. And it's unique what each class brings each year. And that was a really memorable one.
Yeah. I think that one had me in tears. I think there was something happening that day, and I was like, I needed that.
Yeah. And there are times, like, I'm a pretty emotional person. So sometimes when I tell a story, it's just me and my iPhone. There'll be times where I feel like I'm back in that moment, and I'm like re-experiencing it, and I start to tear up, so then I have to stop. And it's funny because sometimes the ones that I think are emotional for me aren't as emotional for other people, and they take away something different. And that's the cool thing about storytelling, is you never know what someone will grasp from that story.
Yeah.
It's just really cool to see.
Yeah. So your other books, you have your 3-book series, it's middle grade, and then you have your book that's kind of inspired from your Instagram stories.
Yep.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, before I even get to that, there's a 4th book coming out too. That's not only did I collect stories, I wrote poems every year for students.
Oh, fun.
And luckily, middle schoolers are pretty blunt when it's good or not. And so I have hundreds and hundreds of poems. So that's another book deal I signed, was like a Shel Silverstein type of book where I have poems and then it's illustrated. But the sticky note, the book is called, that you're talking about, is called Sticky Notes. And the subtitles changed a lot, but it's called Sticky Notes, Memorable Lessons from Ordinary Moments. And so it is a collection of 100 short stories that I got to choose from my teaching career that kind of, I hope, are inspirational, but also give people an insight into what teachers do every day, because we do teach content, but there's so much else that happens that people just don't get to hear about that are pretty uplifting that we as teachers get to witness. And so each story fits on basically one page, and on the other page is an illustration that I did to represent the story. And that comes out in October. I'm really excited about this book, but I'm anticipating a much larger response from that Sticky Notes book, because it kind of came out of nowhere for me. And to see that people, that it resonates with people, at least the stories on Instagram, I just can't wait to see what the book does. And I hope people, like, you know, I have hundreds of stories, right?
In a big old box. In
a big old box of unorganized notes. And to choose 100 out of there was really difficult. And so what I ended up doing is I went back through Instagram and I was like, which one of these resonated well? Because I know people who follow me will buy it, but there will be other people who don't know who I am that buy it. And so what do I want them to see? And so I had to have an interesting mix of like new stories and old stories. But I'm happy with how it turned out, and the big hope is that it's successful enough to where there would be multiple volumes.
Good.
And that would be fun.
That would be really fun.
Here's a preview of what you can expect from Omri next week.
One more question. Is that what your hair looked like when you're...
Yeah. Yep. So this character... Yeah, so this character, right here, I've been drawing him since I was younger than you. And he's slightly changed over time, but he was like my go-to cartoon. And yeah, my hair used to be that, but just like shooting way up. And so that's just how I drew Matt's hair.
Matt and Matt. This is you.
This is me. Yep.
Sprouts is easier to spell than Eicheldinger.
Well, Matt Eicheldinger and the Curse of 10 Broken Toes by Matt Eicheldinger. Sounds pretty egocentric.
Thanks for meeting with us, Matt. We had a great time getting to know your story more, and we are looking forward to next week's interview as well. Family Fun Twin Cities provides a weekend family fun guide that divides into regions of the metro. We also have a highly curated calendar of the family fun you can find on any specific day. We have all the links available in the show notes if you are listening to the podcast, or in the description box if you are watching on YouTube. And now it's time to highlight our weekend top 3. Visit the Cafe Meow. My daughter absolutely loves cats, but mean old mom isn't up for having a pet. Our solution? We book an hour at the Sweet Rescue coffee shop and she gets a fix without extra responsibility. This is the last weekend for Galleria's Into the Deep floral experience with Flowers by Bachman's. Guests will enjoy an immersive experience where sea-inspired floral sites and creative floor-to-ceiling installations will engage everyone's sense of wonder and enjoyment. Can your kids find some of these displays? A fantastical octopus with arms up to 10 feet long, 2 spectacularly tall seahorses, and a larger-than-life oyster shell with an illuminated pearl. Here, there, everywhere, a relaxed family concert. This concert takes place at Orchestra Hall on April 7th at 2 p.m. Take a musical journey around the world with the Minnesota Orchestra. A note about relaxed family concerts. They are designed for audiences of all ages, including individuals with autism or sensory sensitivities. Each concert takes place in an inclusive environment where audience members are welcome to be who they are and enjoy music together with the family. And now, it's your turn to go do fun stuff.
Christo, this can be cut.
What's with the bees? Gets stung a lot?
Is it part of the curse? You're going to have to read this, dude.
You know how every like Disney movie and Pixar movie has some like cute, quirky side character?
Yeah.
The bees are like that to me, but I have so many memories.
But evil looking.